Next news out of India. Western standards on human rights can't be blindly applied to India, says Amit Shah. Amit Shah, who was addressing the National Human Rights Commission, he's the Union Home Minister in India, and he said that Western standards on human rights cannot be blindly applied to India because he says that those killed by militants in sorry, I lost my place here. In Kashmir, bringing up Kashmir here, that India needs to have their own way of dealing with things in Kashmir, and they can't just follow human rights examples by the West. It has to be done by an Indian standard. When other human rights were brought up, human rights issues were brought up in India, such as women can't go outside. Women can't use a toilet. Right? They have to go outside in a field, and they get raped. And when I say women, obviously not all women in India, but millions of women in India are facing this problem. And so India is like, you know what? We're working on those human rights issues. We're going to spend some money to make sure that those millions of women have better options. So on one hand, he wants to be like the West and give women a toilet. And on the other hand, he is saying that India needs to use Indians' standards on how to handle people in Kashmir.
Well, I don't know what that toilet situation is, but I do know that there is no such thing as Western standards of human rights or Indian standards of human rights. There's only the right way of doing human rights and not doing human rights, okay? Those are the only things. Those are the only two ways. You either respect human rights or you don't respect human rights. There's no Western, Eastern, Indian, American human rights. There's just human rights. There's just human rights. If you don't respect human rights, then you're against human rights, you idiot. Oh my, this pisses me off so much, okay? This is why Western standards, you mean the right standards, right? Like what other form of human rights do we have? It's not Western. This is a global issue. This is a global issue. You either are for human rights or you're not, okay? You just don't what if another country comes in like, hey, our way of doing, we throw acid in our girls' faces when they wear the hijab. Oh, you don't like it? Well, I guess you don't like the way we do human rights. You just go do your own version of human rights, okay?
Well, that's kind of what he said right here. He says this, in quotes, he says, India has an inbuilt framework of human rights. Our family values have special protection of women and children, and villages look after the poor, believing it to be a part of their dharma. So, he's saying that the way India, but what I meant by the toilet issue in India is, one, there's a huge rape issue in India, right? That India will not address. And even when people do try to address it, it's still pretty bad. So there are a lot of women that are too poor. They're too poor to actually have toilets. And so they have to go out in fields to use the restroom. But men know that women do this. So in the middle of the night, when women go out and do that, they get raped in fields. So, this is a huge issue, and this has been a huge issue, and this has been an ongoing issue. And when people started hearing about this and getting outraged, obviously it has given them a push to start doing something about it. But their idea, to me, what he is trying to say is India's inbuilt idea of human rights doesn't match our idea of human rights.
This guy is an anti-Indian racist. This guy is a bigot. This guy has a bigotry of lower expectation, because he's saying like he thinks the Westerners could have superior human rights, and basically what you're suggesting is that, you're doing an inferior version of actually running a society. Your culture and your ideology is inferior to the superior methods of actually caring about human rights, okay? And I can tell you what, this is not a Western versus Indian issue. You know how I know that? Because there are a lot of Indian activists that are actually fighting for the superior rights that you think, superior culture, superior way of living, superior values that you think is Western. It's not fucking Western. This is these are values that any country that has adopted them has flourished. Any country that has adopted these values, the people are happier, the people have better ways of living. It has nothing to do with the West, okay? These are values that are in Japan, in South Korea, in Hong Kong versus China, for example, okay? These are not Western countries. They have the same values, and they're better countries than yours because they have these values. It has nothing to do with West. This is just a superior way of running countries, and you believe in an inferior way, and you are cursed to your own country. You're cursed to your own country that because you don't believe in human rights, and there are many activists within India, not from the West, within India itself, that are fighting for these superior values that you're betraying. Shobhan, what do you think?
Okay, first, one thing, I posted this article on my page, and my caption was like, so he's basically telling the world that India is not a country for human rights, because there's no Western version or Eastern version, like you said. It's just human rights. And if it's not the Western version, then you are against human rights, basically. That's one thing. And by the way, you should know who he is. He is the president of BJP. This guy.
Yeah, he's a big deal. He's a huge deal, right? He's the president of the most popular party in India, right? This BJP is the party that Modi came from, right? So this is the Hindu far right nationalists. They are the ones that support this party.
Yeah.
These are, you know, if you think Trump is bad, these are way more. This is the actual.
They're way worse than Trump.
Yeah, these are the actual the far right that people are worried about. It's not happening in Europe as much, or in North America. It's happening with the BJP party. These are the guy. You know why this guy doesn't support Western, quote unquote, Western human rights? What they mean by Western human rights is actual human rights, because there's no such thing about Western human rights. It's just human rights. What they mean by not wanting Western standards of human rights is that we want to betray people's rights. We want to. That's what he means. That's it. These are people. These are bigots. These are people that are anti-minority. These are people that want to take away rights that Indians have been fighting for years, and their excuse is like, oh, we just don't support Western standards of human rights. No, what you actually mean is that you don't support human rights, okay? And again, this is why I don't like people calling these values Western values. They're not Western values. The name the branding that I always have is Enlightenment values, because these are values that belong to the whole planet. They do not belong to the West. They have been supported by almost every activist in almost every country, and they have been adopted in countries other than Western countries, and they have always been successful, and they have always caused countries and people to be happier, okay, and flourish and grow faster and be more progressive. It's not Western values, it's Enlightenment values, and it belongs to the whole planet. And let me see the top.
Okay, I wanted to add some things, like, for example, his strategies are like he's the nationalist guy, and that's why people supporting him are like nationalists, and he gets everyone, his supporters, against these Western values to be nationalists, so that they can support what the Hinduism says. And there's this book called Manusmriti in Hinduism, which is like the top text, the top laws of Hinduism. And this book, their party, the BJP, the RSS, they want the Indian constitution to change into something which is like the Manusmriti. So it is kind of like the Hindu Sharia, okay?
Right.
And this book supports rape, murder, etc. So how is that human rights?
Well,
the top laws supports rape, murder, and so on.
So how many Hindus are in Pakistan?
There are very few minority, I guess. Okay. Not even 1%.
Okay, so let's say there are some Hindus in Pakistan. If the Muslims in Pakistan go and attack these Hindus, right? And we go try to defend the Hindus against the Muslims, and the Muslims come like, hey, well, this is the Islamic version of doing human rights. Would this guy support that? Would this guy be like, oh, well, I guess that's their version of human rights, I guess, so we can't say anything. They're oppressing Hindus, they're killing them in the street because they're Hindu. But hey, that's just the Islamic version of doing human rights. That's their thing.
Oh, he actually has an answer to that. He actually has an answer to that.
What's his answer?
He wants all the Hindus, those are minorities in Muslim countries, if they feel attacked, they can come to India and stay for free. And he wants to send every Muslim out of India and welcome all Hindus inside India.
Oh my God! Yeah, so
Hindus. I mean,
but
Hindus,
that makes him hypocrite. That makes him hypocrite. He should be like, no, you're in Pakistan. You're a Hindu citizen as Pakistan.
He is hypocrite.
Your idea is getting cut. Anyways, let's go.
The entire party is a hypocrite.
Yeah, I know that. I know. But I'm pointing out that these people have double standards. They're hypocrites, and they are taking. It's so sad that the two countries that are replacing the United States as superpowers, India and China, have very limited respect for human rights. I'm hoping that within the next 20 years, as the standard of living in India and China increases, people in India and China, as you go up to in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people will start caring more about human rights. Okay, I'm hoping, because if what the new superpowers of tomorrow are going to be a lot worse than the United States when it comes to supporting human rights, if it's India and China. But I'm hoping that
I'm hoping so as well, because like I'm from India, and I'm very vocal against every stuff that happens in India, every bad stuff. I'm very vocal about those, but I think India as a country had the potential to be a good superpower, but this right-wing nationalist parties, they're just ruining the entire country for everyone.
Atheists are under attack in many places. If they were Christians, their voices would be heard. If they were Jews, their voices would be heard. If they were Muslims, their voices would be heard. But they are atheists, and not many seem to be listening. Let's make it difficult for them to ignore us. We have built a global community, and now we are tearing down geographic, cultural, and language barriers so we can find each other and support each other. In the last decade, we have built the largest atheist community in the world. Now we're doing the same in other languages. With your help, we have started Atheist Republic in Persian and Arabic.
انضميت مؤخرا لأسرة Atheist Republic وحيصير عندي بودكاست باللغة العربية.
As we grow, we can dedicate more time, staff, and resources to start doing the same in Spanish, Portuguese, Malay, Bengali, Urdu, Hindi, and other languages. We are providing community, support, informative content, and amplifying the voices of those who need protection, especially in countries where people feel isolated simply for their lack of belief. We want to be there for them, and we are only getting started. Help us get there. Check in the description for ways you can support our projects.